had to click a little button that I've never had to click before. So sorry about that. All right, John, let's get started. Stay tuned for at the end. We're going to just show you a super sweet bonus. And here is John Jr. and Esther and their son. So what's up, John? Let you take it from here.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, guys. I do really appreciate you guys spending your time with us a little bit today, because the one that we did last night, we had weather issues. Where I live is in the middle of Tennessee, and where that is, storms come, and I live out in the woods, so signal at nighttime tends to go down. They like to conserve at nighttime and not give us a good signal. So this is a picture about my sons, and wanted to spend time with them. So basically, when you look at your kids growing up, and you're a father that wants to stay involved with them, you got to find ways as they get older to stay involved. And I thought John Jr. would stay in sports because he was really good at it, but he decided to go with his education, and he had a great grade point average. He was on the dean's list in school and did a lot of good things. So I couldn't argue with that. So we had to find something that we could do together. John Jr., next slide, Ryan. John Jr. decided that he wanted to sell Pokemon cards. For those of you that are in my generation, Pokemon cards back then were a real hot commodity. And he was selling them, and I saw a lot of these cards coming in, and I saw it away as he had a partner that he was selling with, and I bought out his partner and decided to go into the Pokemon business with John Jr., and we sold tens of thousands of Pokemon cards on eBay, and that was a way for me, as going forward as he became an adult, to stay involved in his everyday life and be more involved as a father, other than just being a father figure.
That's awesome.
This is a picture of furniture. I know, Ryan, I said that last night too. I started out at a very young age selling furniture, and I did that because I like to talk to people, and I thought it was something that I would be good at. I excelled in this career in the corporate world. I went from being a salesperson to #1 in the showroom to actually being the showroom manager of a multi-million-dollar showroom. So that's a little bit about my history of my corporate side. Go ahead. Along the way, after we sold Pokemon cards, we decided, we didn't want to do that forever. So Jim Corcoran had another course that he put out. If those of you who don't know Jim Corcoran, I'll get into that a little bit later. And he decided to put out a course about selling cell phones, used cell phones. And John and I did that, and we sold them on eBay, and we sold on Amazon, and we sold a ton of them. And a little story about that Ryan likes, he gets a kick out of, is that while I was working at the furniture store, I told the manager that I'm going to have people dropping off cell phones here at my lunchtime and during my breaks, if he didn't mind them coming to the parking lot. And make a long story short, they would come during my lunchtime from all over Tennessee in my break and bring me cell phones. And it was kind of funny because the people out in the parking lot looked like thought you were doing a drug deal, but I was actually selling cell phones. So
oh my gosh,
it was an interesting thing.
That's funny.
But even though I did that, I had that entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I've had that drive for a very long time. And I knew there was more to me than being a furniture salesman. Anyone that's a salesperson that sits in a showroom and waits for customers to come in to be able to sell them, and you have to go through a rotation when you're a furniture commission sales, and it's commission sales. I like that, but it wasn't something that I wanted to continue to do because my income was dictated by what came through that door.
Mm-hmm.
And what came through that door was a number system of whether or not I was going to get somebody that was just wasting my time looking around, or
Mm-hmm.
somebody that actually wanted to buy furniture. So I knew I was better than that. Not that, I don't mean that in a bad way,
Mm-hmm.
but I just knew that my time could be more productively spent.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to the next one, right? So along the way, I met Meg Whitman, who was an executive, I think, for Disney for a while, and then she was she was one of the ones that was one of the top executives for eBay. And I met her at eBay Live. For those of you that are my generation and remember, eBay used to have eBay Lives many years ago. Functions, and she would be there, and at the end of them, she spoke. And when she spoke with such positive and such reinforcing energy that it resonated with me. and it really motivated me. It was like going to, if you ever went to a power conference where everyone is so positive and talking so energy that by the time you
Mm-hmm.
leave there, you're bouncing off walls and you just want to go and do everything. And if you ever been to like some of these conferences, like I said, you can come out of a weekend conference and you've got so much energy.
Wow.
Get to me, so she inspired me. I also met in the 1990s, late 90s. I met Jim Cochran. I didn't meet him. I'm saying it the same way, Ryan. I didn't meet him. But I won one of his auctions, which was for the My Silent Sales team and the offline bid. I think it was the very first auction that he ever did on eBay with these two courses. They were his two mainstream courses, and I won it. It was a steal for what I won it for. But the one thing that came out of that value-wise for me is not what I paid for to win the auction, but the advice that Jim gave me. And I'll never forget that advice. One of the first things he asked me is, how can I help you? And where do you want to be? And those two questions really resonated with me. And then he also said, you've got a lot of ideas, and within those ideas, you have to learn them, master them, and then teach somebody how to do that for you so you can move on to something else. And I'll never forget, he said, if you don't do that, then what's going to happen is you can only spread yourself so far. And if you've got 7 different things that you've got your hands in, at some point in time, you're going to run out of hands.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was very important with that. And this is where I actually did meet Jim Cochran, and I know now that it was CES in Texas. I think it was CES 2? Yeah,
That's
2.
right. Yep.
In Dallas. And you can see Jim is hugging my lovely wife, Esther, and there I am next to him to his right. And then you got Nicole, who I met, who's from the UK. Very, very nice person. And then we've got, what do you call it on the end? Jason Tay. I forgot his name last time, not this time. Jason happens to be a client of mine. What's significant about this picture is that Jim, at midnight when we came in, Jim Cochran said to me, "Hey John, that's something where that's where we met too." Oh, and Jenny says that's where I met her too. Sorry, Jenny, I would never leave you out. But Jim asked, my wife and I, he says, it's midnight. He says, "Hey, you want to go get something to eat?" And I'm thinking midnight, but you know what? I can tell you guys something. When you go to these things, between 12 o'clock at midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning, and Jenny can vouch for this, is where some of your best networking is done.
That's so true. Yep.
So
true.
That's basically what this is, and we'll get back into that. This is Skip McGrath, and Skip McGrath is a good friend of mine, and I met him back in the early 2000s. And Skip has a huge mailing list, and I wanted to, I've been following him for a while, and I just wanted to know what he was doing and how I can become part of what he was doing, because we both had the same mindset of helping people.
Yep.
And when you have the same mindset and you're in that same circle with somebody, you want to join with them, and you want to be able to create a bigger circle to help even more people.
So true.
And this is my reason for doing everything. I mean, that's my wife, Esther, with my 2 grandchildren. I've got Gabriella, my granddaughter, and Jasper, my grandson. I'm not sure if they were 6 and 5 and 7 in this picture or not, or they may have been a little bit younger. But Esther is my one inspiration that drives me to do everything that I do. I do it for her, and I do it for my family. And the one importance of this picture and why I put it up there is you got to have a why. What is your why?
That's good.
If you don't have a why and why you do things, then you're never going to accomplish them, because you're going to have your peaks and valleys and ups and downs. But if you have a why, you stay focused and you stay driven to what you do, why you're doing it.
So good. All right, John, why do we love wholesale?
Why we love wholesale? I'm going to let Ryan take this a little bit. This is where I got my drink.
All right, perfect. So number 1, less competition, especially if you guys are doing retail arbitrage, online arbitrage. You know that especially during Q4, you can have listings with 20 and 30 people, other sellers on a listing with you. With wholesale, it's just not like that. Most of my listings, there's 1 or 2. Many of my listings are just me. And so that's so cool. And it just makes a big difference to, with so much less competition, you sell more and just it's more profitable overall. Number 2, it's replenishable. It's so frustrating when I was doing retail arbitrage a lot that I would go to a store, find a really good clearance sale, and sell out really fast, and then I'd go back looking for more, but there weren't any. So with wholesale, you just don't have that issue. You can, once you find a really good hot selling product, you simply just need to place another order and get more in. And three is you never have to touch the stuff. You can leverage John's warehouse in Tennessee. They have a prep service called My Fulfillment Team that you can have all your wholesale items shipped directly to them. They will prep it and ship it off to Amazon for you. You never have to see it, never have to touch it. So it just makes a big difference for in your sourcing. You can really focus on what you're really good at, which is, you should be focusing on finding more inventory if you're selling online. So this allows you to do that. It's more of hands off. This wholesale allows you to scale your business like never before. This is the pyramid of inventory sourcing that I introduced during the book that I wrote with John called Beyond Arbitrage. And so all this does is just show the different ways that you can find inventory. Down at the bottom is selling items from around your house. A lot of people start there. They move up to consignment, then do thrift stores and garage sales. Now, not everybody does this, flow or does it in this way. Some people go right to online arbitrage or retail, or some people go right to private label at the top. But just the reason I show this is that the levels of online arbitrage and below, there's very little barrier to entry. Literally anybody can open up an Amazon account, walk into a store, find it, and sell it on Amazon. When you get up to wholesale, just a whole different level, and it seems scary, it sounds scary sometimes, but it's really not, and that's what we want to show you today, that it's not, it doesn't have to be intimidating. John's going to show you what he does when he talks to vendors, questions to ask, and so, but because not everybody knows this stuff, it's just a higher barrier to entry, and so that's why we're showing you today, so you guys can move on up in that. Next, where to find wholesale inventory. So I'll let John take over here when we start talking about trade shows. John, you're on mute, looks like.
Am I still muted?
Nope, you're good now. Or, yeah.
Okay. Trade shows is a great platform to be able to find wholesale inventory. There are many trade shows in the United States that you can go to. Some of the trade shows that I like to visit are ASD in Vegas. I mean, the Javits Center has the toy fair, which is held in like the end of February, March, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. ASD has the variety. They have their show in March is one of the big ones, and then they have one in August also. That's a big one. There's Comic-Con out in California. There's a gaming show that you can go to both in Chicago, and there's a gaming show also that you can go to in California. Mm-hmm. There's also the Atlanta Shoe Show that you can go to. So there's some big trade shows, and trade shows can be a great place to find inventory. But then there's also trade shows that Ryan and I have been to that are paid trade shows. And what's the difference between a paid trade show and a non-paid show for you? Well, I can tell you the biggest difference that I've seen is when you go to a paid trade show, you're going to find there are not that many Amazon sellers that are willing to go and pay to go to a trade show that they have to pay for. They feel that it should be free. So when you go there, there's less competition for Amazon, and there's more products that you can you'll be able to look at and be able to bundle and do things like that with if you want to, and have basically a free fall with the wholesalers that are there, because there's not that many sellers that actually go and pay at the trade shows that you have to pay for it. And Ryan, you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, so we actually went to the Sweets and Snacks show a couple years ago with John and Esther and his family, and it was a paid show, and there just weren't other Amazon sellers there. So just it makes a huge difference when you're kind of the only ones there, and so that's just a whole nother barrier. If you look for paid trade shows, then most people aren't going to do that. So if you can do what other people aren't, you're automatically going to be ahead. All right.
And just one thing before we get off that page with the trade shows. One thing about trade shows, I told you about them, but how do you find them? You can Google those trade shows, and then you can find out. One of the biggest thing about trade shows is once you Google them and you find them, go into their directories and you can see who some of the vendors are, and you'll get an idea of what products they carry.
Perfect. All
I'll
right.
let you take this one.
All right,
'Cause
number two, backup packaging. This sounds so simple, but literally, if you're finding an item and you're selling an item via online arbitrage or a retail arbitrage, and it's selling really well, and you want to find the wholesaler, you might literally be able to just turn the package over and find all the information that you need, and then just contact them directly. Say, I'm already buying your product. I'm selling it really well. How can I open up a wholesale account? So it could be as simple as just turning the package over.
and that was something that Ryan learned that I showed him how to do, the package thing and how simple that is. And like Ryan said, most people don't even look at the pack of packages or even know that they can do that, especially someone just starting out. So that's a good key tip. Relationships. There's different kinds of relationships. There's relationships that you make when you go to conventions and go to seminars where you build networking type relationships with business people. And then there's vendor type relationships where you build relationships with wholesalers and vendors and suppliers and distributors. And those type of relationships don't just happen overnight. Those are relationships that you build by doing your homework. It's very important to do your homework when you're building those type of relationships. And what do I mean by that is, if you're going to a trade show, you should be looking through the directory, finding out which trade show you want to go to, who's going to be there, who the person is that you need to speak to at the trade show. So you should have all your homework done so that when you walk into that trade show, you look more like a seasoned seller or a seasoned buyer than someone that just walked into a trade show for a first time. And you could be there for a very first time. But if you go in there and you do your homework and your research and you find out about that company, where they have a presence, where they sell, what markets, and things like that, and who the person is that you need to speak to, that you could talk to about you being able to buy product. If you have all that done, you're going to look more like a seasoned buyer to them than someone that just walked in and they won't even know the difference.
Yep. So true. The database, this is just a list of, it's over 2,000 wholesale suppliers and over 1,200 private label suppliers that John Jr. and I put together. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you can get 50% discount on that. So that can change, make a big difference in wholesale sourcing, just to go right there. It's searchable. You can search by item, by category. So it's really cool. And then Real Wholesale Sources is a book I wrote a couple years ago. It's a little over 200 wholesale sources that are online, and so you can literally be in your pajamas at home and do online wholesale sourcing. And don't let trade shows scare you, because, and John will talk about this in a minute, but a big secret is you don't even have to go to trade shows to source wholesale. And so using this book is one way. And these are all online sources. You can place orders online, have it shipped to you, or directly to John's warehouse. John, you want to take Google or me?
You could do Google.
All right, and Google. And so this can be your biggest friend too. And so if you find something that you want to sell wholesale, just look it up. Look up online. I was talking to somebody in my private label group yesterday that was asking, how do you find the manufacturers or the wholesalers? Well, a lot of times if it's on an Amazon product listing, the title, right underneath the title, it'll say by somebody. And usually that's the person that owns the brand. And usually that's the wholesaler. So just Google that company and find out where they're located, get a phone number, get an email address. A lot of times even these wholesale companies have web forms online that you can fill out your information and get price list emailed back to you. And you don't even have to talk to anybody if you really don't want to. All right, John, how to negotiate with wholesale suppliers. First is ABC.
Yeah, ABC. Does anybody know what ABC is? If you don't, I'm going to tell you what it means. It's one of the biggest things that I built my business on, and it's the mindset of always be closing. So you always want to be closing, whether you're at a trade show or doing something over the phone, which I'll go through with you in a little while. You always want to be closing.
Okay.
80-20 rule is part of the always be closing rule also, because at 80% of the time you're going to be listening, 20% of the time you talk. But within that 20% of the time is where you're doing your always be closing. You're listening your 80%, which means you're listening to what's being said, you're understanding the conversation, you're trying to direct the conversation in the direction that you want it to go, so that you have your mindset of your always be closing. So if they come out and say to you versus, you know, they're talking and saying, yeah, we sell online, we sell on Amazon, we sell to brick and mortar. If they're giving all this information while you're listening to them, then you already know in your 20% when you're talking where to go and what direction to target your questions to.
Absolutely. So there's the 80% listen. And so tell me, give me an example, like what are you saying when you're going to, and you mentioned this last night when we were talking about how to negotiate, when you just go up there, you know, like, do I want to go up there and say, hey, what's your minimum order?
No, you first of all, when you go up there, again, you've done your homework, so you know who you're supposed to speak to. So you want to go up there and you basically want to say, hey, I'm looking for is Tim Smith around? I'm here to see Tim Smith or whatever the guy's name is. And then once you get him, you say, yes, I'm interested in taking a look at some of your wholesale products. You know, I understand you got a great brand. That product, you know, you can show him some of his products. Say, yeah, these are nice products. I know they sell very well because you've done your homework. You kind of look to see how they're selling. Say, is there anything new that you got coming up? And you just kind of take the conversation. You could also take the conversation if he starts to get a little bit fidgety or lose interest. You could also take the conversation to where you bring it back to him, and you might find something on him that you can strike a conversation with. Like he may have a Super Bowl ring, or I'm just using wild things. He may have, you know, a college ring, and you may say, hey man, is that a championship Nebraska ring, or down here Alabama ring, or Tennessee ring? And you can strike up conversations. And by doing that, what you're doing is you're taking down barriers. You're breaking down that wall that he has to have because he's told, you know what, he has to stay direct on what he's supposed to be doing. But you can break down those walls very easily, and then you have a man to man or man to woman talk, just as two people talking versus someone that's trying to, you know, get you to buy something. And before you know it, you've created a friend, and that friend is willing to do anything for you because now you made it more personal. Yeah. It's all about making things personal when you're dealing with sales reps.
Right. And Jenny posted in the chat that you're building relationships.
Exactly.
So tell me, like, if you're somebody is, a lot of people, the biggest question that we get asked, John, is, do I tell them that I sell on Amazon, and how do you handle that whole thing?
Well, I think that, again, a lot of that's done, again, with the pre-prep, and the pre-prep is the phone calls before you go to the trade shows and things like that. And that's when I ask questions. I ask them, you know, once I get the person I need to speak to, I ask where do they have a presence. And if I find out that they already sell to online sellers and things like that, then I'll come out and say, do you guys sell on Amazon? And if they don't, and they have an objection to it, then I can handle that objection at that time and go into certain things and how to overcome those questions about Amazon. And one of them is basically not like to sell on Amazon. It's like, well, because they tank the price and everything gets, you know, race to the bottom. And then I'll say, if I'm able to handle that for you and solve that issue for you, don't you think that Amazon would be a great platform? It's the biggest online selling platform in the world. And their ears start to perk up, and they want to hear what you have to say. And then you go into, you know, about exclusives and things like that. And before you know it, you've won them over. And a lot of times you can get exclusives from them or another question that comes up is, well, no, there's already 15 people selling on Amazon. We don't want any more people selling our product. And I say, I understand that, but wouldn't you like to keep your pricing where it needs to be so that your brick and mortar stores that you sell to will be happy, as well as your online sellers be happy, and we have a mutual agreement between them where we have a MAP pricing. For anyone that MAP pricing is minimum advertised pricing, then, you know, you'll have that pricing set so that now you can say, you know what, it doesn't matter if you have 15 people selling it or if I'm the only one selling it, because you're only going to get a certain amount of market share, and it doesn't matter how many sellers. One person will get the same market share as the 15. But what I'll do is I'll monitor it and report back to you anyone that comes on there that shouldn't be selling your product, that's tanking the price, so that we can get them removed from Amazon. Does that interest you? And right then you sound professional, and you sound like you're in their corner and you want to help their business, and you just turn something down. You just turn something around for them. That was a negative, that you just showed them a very viable platform where they can make money.
Absolutely. Do you negotiate with them as far as pricing? You know how last night you were talking about the buy it by the case, buy it by the pallet, by the truckload. Tell them about that.
Yeah, there's and then you're talking about how to buy things at the trade shows too. And when you go in there, you never go in there and throw all your aces at them at once. You want to go in there and say, if I buy this product, how much is it? And then you want to say, if I buy it do you sell it by the case? And then they'll tell you by the case price. And I'll say, what if I want to buy it by the pallet? And then they'll give you a pallet price. And then they'll also give you, I always say that, if I want to buy it by tractor trailer. And then they know you're serious, whether you're not, or whether you are or you're not. They know you're serious when you say, if I want to buy it by the tractor trailer. And let me tell you, you'll get their ears to perk and you'll get their attention. Whether you buy it that way or not is not the issue. It's just knowing that you have the capability of doing that in their mind is going to get their attention.
Yep.
Now the other thing you have to be very careful of is when you go in there is, again, you want to treat yourself like you're a professional, and just keep in mind that when you're going in there, it may be your very first time you ever go in there, but one of the things that is that you need to understand is that they're just afraid of you as you are of them, and they need you just as much as you need them.
Yep, that's so true.
So you always want to keep that in mind, and they do have different pricing structures. So that's why it's very important to do your homework in the beginning, so that you're treated absolutely like the seasonal, professionals that come in there, like Walmart and those other stores, because they do categorize by what you tell them. If you say that you sell online, you'll get a different price sheet. If you tell them you sell in brick and mortar, there's another price sheet. If you come in and say you're a chain store, you'll get a different price sheet. If you come in and say you're one of the mega giants like Walmart, you're going to get that price sheet. So you have to really know and make sure that you give them the qualified answers to their questions, and know that if they ask you, who do you sell to? You could say I have thousands of customers, and you're not really telling a fib, because you do. If you sell on Amazon, eBay, a website, or any other platform, who are you selling to? You're selling to customers. How many do you have? Well, if you've been selling a while, you have a lot of them.
That's right.
So utilize that and use that ammunition for your benefit.
Absolutely. And Jenny posted in the chat that the co-op can come in very handy with negotiating. You can leverage that too and say that you have other, you can in effect position yourself as a distributor if you're selling to other businesses. And also don't forget that you can leverage John's warehouse as well. And so to come in there and say, yeah, I have a small online business, I sell on Amazon and everything ships to my house, you're making yourself looking really small. But if you tell them that, yeah, I have a warehouse in Tennessee, what you totally do, if you're using his warehouse, you can say that you have a warehouse that's in Tennessee that I need you to ship to, and you just position yourself on a whole different level. And that one tip I mentioned last night is on your business cards. Most of the big companies have whole purchasing departments, and those people are called buyers. So I have learned to put on my business card, senior buyer. And that makes a huge difference with just with the perception. Again, it's all about perception. And then if you go in there, act confident. And one thing John taught me is that if you are nervous, which is totally fine. I go to trade shows and sometimes I feel like I just have to get in the zone before I'm ready to go to a real vendor, one that I'm really interested in. Practice on one that you have no interest in their products. Just walk up and talk to them. Ask them about their products. Say, hey, these are really nice. Where do you sell these? Who are your customers? And one really good question that I've learned too is ask the vendors, what are their hottest sellers? You might walk in knowing that there's an item on Amazon that's selling very, very well, but what if they have a whole different line of stuff that you never even knew, didn't get to research, that's just flying off the shelves? You want to know that kind of information, and those sales reps know that. So ask them, what are your hot sellers? Let's see here.
And the other thing that Brian's hitting on too is that once you build those relationships, you can go behind and talk to them and say, hey, Steve, what's the newest thing coming out? What's the newest movie? And don't be bashful. Ask him what it is.
Yeah.
And he might say, you know what? It's going to be Angry Birds. And you know what? I'm not supposed to show these things until Monday because we're not going to release them. But let me show you what I have here, and we can do a pre-order. So
Yeah.
you can just by asking the proper qualifying questions, you can get to things that you would normally not even think of because you weren't in that right frame of mind. You weren't thinking in that direction, but you can actually get things that the average person going in there that's just shopping for a store may not be able to get because they don't ask those questions.
Yep. That's absolutely right. I want to move on here, and you can get into this. So we can talk about at the show as well too. But talk to them about why, how it is that they never have to go to trade shows.
Basically, same thing as a trade show. To keep this short and sweet, it's the same type of thing. All the qualifying questions that you do, it's the same thing. When you pick up a phone, you have to ask all those qualifying questions, find out who the person is you need to speak to, and then find out if they're going to be at a trade show, and that if you're not going to. Another cool trick with not going to trade shows is you can still register for the trade shows, and if you do, you're able to call these people up, and they'll usually give you the trade show special.
Yep. That's absolutely right. And that's so key, guys. This information right here is gold. I understand that not everybody wants to go to a trade show. You can't go for whatever reason. Maybe you're still working a regular job, and that's totally fine. You can't get away from the kids or whatever the reason is. Go to a place like ASD Online, and I'll type that in the chat for you, or I'll have Jenny do that. ASDonline.com, and that's a trade show that's the biggest one that I've ever been to personally. It's in March and August, usually every year. And then so the next one is at the beginning of August, I believe, and it's in Vegas, and it's just huge. It has everything from home and gift to weird, crazy items to clothing and shoes and beauty. Perfumes, so many different niches. But you can register for this and then never show up, and you'll be on these people's email lists now, and so you'll get specials emailed to you. They'll notify you when there's free freight. When a lot of times trade show specials are going to be things like spend $1,000, get $100 off, or 10% off, 15% off $2,000 order. So take advantage of that. Even if you don't intend to walk through the door of the trade show, register as if you're going to go. Then you can contact them as an attendee, and you'll just get much more special attention than if you're just calling them out of the blue. So that's something I learned from John, I believe, and so it's just made a world of difference in our business. Number two, and I know John's talked a little bit about this, but ask qualifying questions. So John, what other questions are when you're listening? You talk about 80% talk, or 80% listen, 20% talk. What are some other questions you're saying to the vendor?
Well, you want to ask qualified questions. You want to ask them, like I said, where's their presence? Who do they sell to? You want to ask open-ended questions. You want to ask questions that don't come back with a question.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different things that you can ask as far as your qualifying questions. You want to ask, when you say qualifying questions, you also want to ask questions as, do you offer free shipping if I buy a certain amount of product? And you want to know, since you're at the show, is this a show special? And if it is, a lot of times show specials take longer to ship to you.
Right.
If it's a seasonal type item or something like that, you need to know the time frame so that if you order it in June and you want it for summer for August and it's not going to come till December, you got an issue. So those are the qualifying questions that you need to ask. As far as those type of questions of knowing about shipping, knowing about do they do free delivery, do they do are there specials that you can get for the show? I mean, just asking those qualifying questions, and is it something that is it a pre-order, or is it something that I can get, and how long is it going to take to get to me? Those type of things.
That's awesome. One thing we get asked too is, do you place orders at the show, or do you wait until you get home and go over everything?
I will write orders at the show, but just because you write it doesn't mean that you're locked into it. Just so people on this call understand, you can write orders but not be locked into them. Okay. And when you do write orders, you make sure that you're taking notes, and we go over some things about how to do that with different forms that we have. But you want to make sure that you're taking notes, because the one thing I can tell you from the years of going, 30 plus years of going to trade shows, is that if you don't take notes and you're told something at a trade show, by the time they get back from that 4-day trade show to their offices, if you don't have those notes of who you spoke to, what they gave you for pricing, if they gave you free shipping, if they offered a bonus for buying this, or if you buy 3 cases, you get a free case, and you go back and say those things, but you don't have those notes when you talk to that person and not know their name, they're going to deny it and say, you know, I speak to so many people, I don't even remember that.
That's so
But
true.
if you have it in writing, you
Yeah.
can say, hey, listen, I have it in writing. I'll gladly fax it over to you.
Right.
Then it's a little bit more. It's a little bit different at that point.
Absolutely. And we have a tool that actually will help you out with that, that Jenny put together. All right. John, you can interrupt me anytime as I go through the stuff that I want to present to everybody. But guys, what we're talking about today is the Wholesale Mentoring Program. There's so much more content that's from this guy. I've learned a lot from John Sr. He's been such a blessing in my life, and just pretty much everything I know about wholesale, I've learned from him. And so you guys have the opportunity to be in a group where he's going to be in there answering questions and bringing great content. So it's called the Wholesale Mentoring Program. There's 13 or 14 lessons that we go through that are just, they're broken down into chunks. So it's bite-sized and with assignments to keep you accountable to go to the next step. Because I know so many times we buy programs, they sit on your hard drive, you never do anything with them. But this is designed for you to go step by step, not to feel overwhelmed through the whole process. So lesson 1 is introduces the whole program. Lesson 2, we get into your goals for wholesale. Lesson 3, we're talking about your budget. Then we talk about evaluating trade shows. Like John mentioned, there's so many different trade shows to go to. So in this lesson, we talk about which one's best for you. If you live in Boston and there's one in Southern California, you got to realize that's going to be a whole lot more than if there's one, just down the road in New York City, for example. So we evaluate trade shows, which is better for your business. And there's also so many different niche trade shows. So just which is better for you. Then we evaluate wholesale vendors. This is a very meaty topic because this helps you determine which ones you want to go to when you go to the show. Then the goals for each show, then planning each show, which is a really big thing because if you guys have been to ASD, you know how large it is. And you definitely don't want to start in booth 101 and then your next appointment's in booth 3000 and then it's back to 500 and then next to 2000. You're just going to be walking all over the place. And so we talk about how to plan it so that you're not doing that and your time is more efficient. And then travel and what to bring. This might seem like a basic one, but there's so many different things that you want to make sure you have when you're at a trade show. Number 1, comfortable shoes. Number 9, at the show intro. And then we talk about making the rounds. This is a very heavy topic because we're talking about exactly what to say, what not to say to a vendor. Then the fun factor, of course, you got to have fun. A lot of times these trade shows are really neat places around the country and around the world. So take some time. And these are business trips. And so you can write the whole thing off. Building relationships, we've definitely got into that today. Trade shows are a great place to build relationships, and sales reps can be great sources for other lines as well. I mentioned this last night too, and didn't say it today, John, but how one wholesale rep might rep 10 or 20 different lines. If they rep one line and it's just a bunch of different smaller price point items, they're not going to be able to make their whole living on that one line. So you get in contact with one rep, it opens you up with a whole bunch of more inventory that you might never even thought of before. Then 13, wash, rinse, repeat. It's just doing this over. Once you get one wholesale contact, just go to the next. And remember, when you're doing trade shows or you're finding sources online, it really only takes one. You only need one profitable product to make that whole trip worth it. So then we got the private Facebook community, and this is where the bulk of the lessons are. The lessons are all there available. You guys can go through it in 1 week or 2 years. It really doesn't matter. It's at your pace, and we're there to hold your hand step by step through the whole process. And the folks that are in there, obviously Skip McGrath on the left, then there's Jenny and John and I, and we want to help you be successful. And so we're there in that group every day answering questions, making sure you guys get what you need. John, the co-op, this is your baby. Tell them about the co-op.
Yeah, the co-op is something that this is where Jenny came in when I met her in Dallas, Texas at midnight. She said, you know what, let's figure out something we can do and work together. And it's 12 o'clock at midnight and most people want to go to sleep, but Jenny and I weren't those type of people. We were just brainstorming, and I told her about some of my ideas. And one of my ideas is I wanted to build a co-op where people could have buyers come in and have sellers come in where they can work with each other, and the sellers can come in and put products into these groups that they have to offer from wholesale or closeouts or whatever it may be. And then the buyers will be in there, and the buyers will be able to choose these products. One of the questions we get about the co-op is it limited to how many buyers can buy? It absolutely is. We have rules in place and controls in place that we actually control the buyers and how many people that they can sell to. We will not allow something to come in there where if they've got 500 units and they want to sell to 50 people, it's just not feasible, and you're not going to make money. You're going to just have a race to the bottom. So we do have controls in place that protect both the sellers and the buyers. It's just a great community that we've built. We have people like Sam Cohen in there who puts his deals in there. I'm in there. We have a guy named Peter that does deals. We have a bunch of other people that are doing deals in there. And we're continuing to train people to be able to be the right type of sellers in those groups. And that's something else that we're going to be offering at a later time, where you can become a seller that actually went through our program and gets, I don't know if we haven't figured out the word, endorsed or whatever by us, so
Right.
that people know that these are the ones that are trained by us and can be trusted as far as the products that you're buying from them. So it's a great concept. Jenny loved it, and it went from Dallas CES to, again, networking. Networking's huge, people, not just in wholesale. You want to network in everything you do. When you go to shows, I told Ryan last night the same thing I'm going to tell you guys. You don't go to a you don't go to a conference, a business conference, to listen just to the conference. You go there for one reason. Yes, it's costly to go there, but the price of admission is not why you're going there. The reason why you're going there is because of the network and the relationships that you build from them.
Absolutely. So there's so many different reasons for the co-op and different ways to use it in your business. Obviously, it's increasing buying power. And think if you're at a trade show and there's just one item that you want from a vendor, but they have maybe a minimum order of $500, but you just need one, and you don't want to buy 500 of that one item. You can go into the co-op, find somebody else that might be interested in going in with you on that minimum order. So it increases your buying power. You have first access to John's inventory lists. You guys might already be on his list where he sends out closeout deals. But the people that are in the co-op get first access to those lists. Also, John mentioned access to deals from guys like Sam Cohen, and there's so many other sellers in there. And the other thing is you can create a whole other stream of income just using this co-op. So let's say that you enjoy going to trade shows and finding closeout deals. You can be the guy that walks around the show, finds the deals, posts it on the co-op, because we're using the WhatsApp platform, which is a texting app. So you could say, hey, I'm at a trade show, or didn't have to say where you are, but there's this many of this widget available. I'm selling it for this much, and you just mark it up just a little bit, but leave enough meat on the bone for them to turn around and sell it on Amazon and make a hefty profit. You're in business with just being in the middle there, and you can have everything sent to John's warehouse. You never even have to see the stuff. You're just kind of the one brokering the deal. So this is such a powerful opportunity for somebody that just wants to, enjoys going around to trade shows, finding inventory from yourself, but you obviously can't spend, everything. You don't have an unlimited amount of budget. So using the co-op, you can be a broker and make some extra cash that way. Benefits to you, this whole program is you can take back control of your business. You don't have to worry so much about people tanking the price because there's so much less competition with wholesale. We have step-by-step lessons with assignments, as I said. We have a supportive community, so you're not alone in this. One thing I always say is do not do this business alone. It's so easy to be off in your own little corner of the world where nobody understands what you're doing. Nobody understands your lingo. But so if you're in a group like this, it's so important to your business to just be around other like-minded folks. And then you also have a never-ending supply of inventory with just much, much less competition. As I said, there's so many listings that I have where I'm maybe the only seller, or there's only one or two other sellers on a wholesale listing. So it makes a big difference. So the bonuses that we're offering is a free copy of the book John and I did called Beyond Arbitrage, basically just how to take your business to another level using wholesale and closeouts. Then Andy Dew is gracious to let us offer his book called The Art of Traveling for Free. He actually lives in Thailand now, and he has VAs that do his whole Amazon business for him. And he doesn't do anything. I mean, he works. He sells other stuff, like he has some a mentoring group and a deal site and all that. But he does this in another part of the world, and he talks about that in this book. Bonus 3 is Nancy Alexander's book, Sourcing Power, How to Find Products at Gift Markets and Trade Shows. And then Jenny threw this in, the Trade Show Planner Worksheet. This is huge, because when you go to a trade show, you want to make sure that you stay organized. As John talked about, you want to write down key points of a conversation, and so this worksheet allows you to do that. Then the bonus number 5 is 50% off the private label, the wholesale supplier database. It's regularly $97, so you get it for $48.50 as a rebate. And there are over 2,000 wholesale suppliers and over 1,200 private label suppliers in this. Bonus 6, the full webinar series. This is not something we've ever done before. What we're going to do is John and I are going to go through every lesson and make it into a webinar, and we're going to go through it live. Of course, it'll be recorded for those that can't watch every one of them live, but we're going to go through the whole wholesale process, go through these lessons, because I know some people would rather sit down and read a PDF, and the lessons are in PDF version. Some people would rather watch a video, but some people need a little bit more interaction to learn, and so that's why we're creating this webinar series to go through step by step. Of course, we talked about the co-op. That's a $297 value alone, just the co-op that you get. And we've also never done this. We've never done a bundle with the co-op and the mentoring program. The Fax Action bonus, the next 50 folks that jump into this get, in addition to 50% off the database, you get a list of over 2,000 wholesale suppliers that are just in the US, and then a list of over 1,200 US private label suppliers. And then the free report, how to easily jump from wholesale to private label. Believe it or not, once you do wholesale, you can jump into private label very, very easily. And that's kind of the whole premise behind my book, Private Label the Easy Way. And so this report shows you about the easy way method of private label, and how knowing wholesale, understanding wholesale can help you get into private label very easily. This is almost a $2,000 value, all of this stuff, but because we're nice, we are offering a Build Your Inventory sale, ends next Thursday night, midnight Pacific time, for only $197. It's a steal of a deal. And here's some testimonials from a couple of folks that have been through the program, that they were just very appreciative of John and everything he's done for them. And so they just joined the ranks of all the happy customers. So there it is, guys. I'll put the offer over here on the right as well, where the chat box is, for you to jump in there. And we'd love to have you join us. It would be a lot of fun to have some more new folks in there that we can help grow your business. John, anything else you want to say before we take the question that we have?
I think you hit it on the head. I think that the biggest thing that they have to understand is, and I know that Jenny and you and I are all on the same page here, is that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to have people in your corner to help you and to work with you. And like I said, this is never done before, this webinar series that we're doing, and we're so excited to be able to do it, because we know that anyone that goes through this course and goes through this webinar series is going to take their learning curve and smash it.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Yeah, you definitely did with me. And I thank you for that. Just learning from you is a huge difference. Guys, if you have any other questions, please post. As Jenny said, just put it in the click the bubble next to your comments, mark it as a question. John, we have one right now, and if we do this and have no others, we'll end this and let people get on with their Friday. But Eric wanted to know, can anyone go to a trade show, or what will he need to do to register?
Anybody can go to a trade show, but you're going to want to have a resale license or a tax ID number. Mm-hmm. Just in case they ask you. I've never been asked for it, but you want to have it, and you also want to make sure you have business cards so you look professional when you go to the trade show. You can do this before the trade show. There are pre-registers. You can do them. Most trade shows have that where you can go on and register beforehand. Yes. So that you actually get your badges sent to you, and all you do is when you get to the trade show, you get your little holders to put your badge in. But yeah, you should have those things, Eric. You should make sure that Anyway, if you're going to be a legitimate business, you want to make sure you have a resale license.
Yep,
Because
absolutely. And
very few wholesalers, and we didn't go into this too much, but very few wholesalers will not, the ones that will talk to you and sell to you without a resale license or tax license. I would stay away from them.
yeah, so true. Yeah, to buy at a trade show, Eric, you will need a state resale tax certificate, and that'll actually help you if you're doing retail arbitrage, because then you can go to like Walmart and get one of those. It's a little card that allows you to buy tax free. So definitely want to be doing that, but you'll need that for wholesale. John, any other parting thoughts?
I don't. I'm real appreciative of you taking the time again, Ryan. And I know that we wanted to do this, and you too, Jenny. As always, you're a blessing. And for the people that actually took the time to listen to us, I can't thank you enough. And hopefully you take action on this, because we've really put a lot of thought process into this webinar series and the things that we put in this package for you to help you guys grow your business. And that's why we're here, and that's what we're committed to that. And again, I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy days, because I know, like Ryan said, there's so many other things you can be doing. And the fact that you jumped on here and listened to us for an hour shows us that you're committed to wanting to learn wholesale and build your businesses.
That's awesome. Ahmed asked if you can do this from Canada. He says we don't have a tax ID or resale license here. Absolutely. Ahmed, my friend Jason Tay, who's actually in the picture with John and Jim Cockrum, he does it from Singapore, and he just uses his Singapore license, and he's able to do it. So he actually posted that, I think, in my private label group, the process that he goes through, but it's super simple. Instead of a resale tax license, he uses his business license there in Singapore. So yes, you can do this from anywhere in the world. But yeah, all you guys, Johan, same thing. You guys can literally do this from anywhere in the world. You can come to a physical trade show. You can come physically to a trade show in the States if you want to, or you can do it from where you are in Sweden and Canada. Just get online, find wholesale sources, register for a show like you're going to show up and be there, and then obviously not show up if you don't want to make the trip over, and then and start buying wholesale. So literally, guys, you can do this from anywhere in the world, and have it sent to John's warehouse and never have to see it or touch the stuff.
And guys, the cool thing about this is when you're part of this group and you're part of the wholesale group, any questions that you have, you post in those groups. We're going to be in those groups, and we're going to be answering those questions. So, like, again, I don't want to overstate this, but you're not alone. I mean, Skip McGrath will jump in there and answer questions. We have people in there that'll jump in and answer questions for you, and even the members that are in there already, they'll actually jump in there and answer questions. The nice thing about this group is that we're all here for one reason: to help one another and to help each other enrich our lives and be better at what we do.
Awesome, John. Thanks for your time. Guys, thanks so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon. Enjoy your weekends. And if you have questions over the weekend, please know that this sale ends next Thursday. If you have questions, just feel free to email me, ryan@ryanrieger.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, but we'd love to have you in the group. Thanks again.
We still have people in the chat.
We do.